Why don't we get started?
Sure. Well, that sounds good. Okay. Well, I'll just be really quick. I just want to do a quick intro to for the fabulous Kathy Dooley from Midwestern University, the Director of Media Services. Welcome everybody to our fourth and final installment of the ETC Interest Group's AI series. Kathy will be leading a session here on DEI and women in technology and all sorts of topics that are related to that and related to AI. So I think this will prove to be a very interesting discussion and maybe a little bit different than some of the other ones. And this is a unique take on the topic. So with that, I will let Kathy take it away.
Well, thanks, everybody. I wanted to let you know, thank you very much, Kevin, for the great introduction. Want to let you know a couple things. Right now, so we are currently recording. For those who have participated in this interest group or these interest groups previously, these are the ones we don't record. So we can make sure that we have an open conversation that's very safe. I want to make you aware that we are recording, but we are just going to record. I have a little presentation to do some level setting of information. And when we jump into a discussion, Madison will stop recording. And then we'll record again when we add a little bit more information on the topic. And then at the end, I've got some resources that we'll probably hit in the recording as well. So just wanted to make you aware. And then, this is, again, the Inclusion, Diversity, Equity, and Accessibility interest group, along with the Women in Technology interest group. So IDEA and WIT. We want to make sure that understanding, reminder that we're all coming to the table here with different experiences, different ideas, different goals. So I would just remind everybody that this, we always make this a very respectful conversation. We're not all going to agree. This may poke on some things that you hadn't thought of or that maybe you're not sure about. But that's the point of an interest group. We're just supposed to really kind of have an open discussion and learn from each other. You are safe here. Please feel free to add comments in the chat or ask questions. I would ask that before that you not just speak, but you raise a hand. And if it's in your taskbar at the, I want to say at the reactions. And then Madison, if you can help me kind of keep an eye on that. And JJ, if you're in here, let us know just so that, because JJ also helped to, from American University, also helped to develop some of this information. And so I know they have some insights to share too. So, and if you just came in, it would be great if you would add your preferred pronouns to your name, just so we make sure when we're catching up with you that we have, are addressing you properly. So with that, I'm going to take a second to share my screen. So today we're talking AI. And there's a lot that we could cover in AI, particularly with bias and ethics. And for today's purposes, I was focusing some of the questions to bias, to just share information, maybe explore that a little bit. We can certainly jump into ethics, but that is a different deep dive. So I wanted to share some information initially when it came to bias. Can everybody see my screen okay? I'll look for a nod from Madison. Yes, okay. All right, so in talking about bias, what we're talking about is two different types of bias. Generative AI, we'll talk about, get my screens together here. Generative AI, that many of you may be aware of. So basically that's the artificial intelligence that uses modeling to add a creative element. Like I've got an example here that is Photoshop, or if you've been typing and asking ChatGPT, just give me some information on this or build some sentences. When we're talking predictive AI, we're talking about applications that pull from a large amount of data to recognize patterns and then predict. So draw inferences, suggest outcomes. To the left, many of you probably have used, like this is my actual phone, that where we've used, I started typing and it fills it in. The middle picture is predictive AI in medicine. And then the one to the right is an actual recruiting software that HR might use to screen applicants. So AI, again, I hope I'm sharing a bunch of stuff that people know, but I just wanted to put this out there. So as you, AI is developed through machine learning. So what that means is it is using a certain amount of tasks for very specific reasons that start performing that task. And as it performs more and more, it starts accumulating intelligence based on the data that is input and as it learns, or that is how it learns. So with that, let's talk the word bias. We've had a lot of training, all of us, over the years. So I just wanted to, again, remind you about bias and what that is. We're talking an inclination of a temperament or an outlook, a prejudice against, in favor of, or against one thing, a person, or group when compared to another. These are just Merriam-Webster dictionary and definitions. And then a description of explicit and implicit bias. So explicit, there's a very clear choice to show bias. Implicit, it's outside of the person's awareness. So when we talk about bias in AI, I did a deep dive and found a lot of articles on this, which I am going to share at the end. But, there's a great LinkedIn learning course. It's about an hour that I really recommend everybody going, and it's called Bias in Artificial Intelligence. And they talk about the impact of that bias, that basically what bias in AI is because the information that it is learning from is from the society, that those human biases within society, including historical or inaccuracies and social inequalities, basically feed the algorithms. And so they can potentially perpetuate those biases. And some impact could be predictive policing, employment tools, financial services, healthcare, misdiagnosis disparity. And then, of course, autonomous vehicles where they are unable to detect darker skin tones. So a couple other really interesting comments were not just from opinions, but Federal Trade Commission is talking about it, and some articles about how it deepens the racial and economic inequities. The most impactful comment that I saw, which I would recommend getting this book when you're done here, is when machines fail, the people who often have the least resources and the most limited access to power structures are those who have to experience the worst outcomes. So basically, for this all seems very grim, but what I'm trying to suggest here is that, when we're looking at all of this, that there could potentially be bias in our areas. So I'm going to pause the record. Just came in. What we're doing is that we are recording any of the slides that I present and my portion, but then we're going to pause recording for the discussions so everyone still feels this is a nice, safe place to be. All right, so let me just click in here. I hope everyone's seeing my screen. So I don't know if you've heard about this term. It's called AI hallucination. AI's tripping, people, sometimes. So what that is it's a phenomenon that they found wherein the large language model perceives a pattern or an object that maybe isn't there. And as a result, it's creating outputs or non-sequital, sensical inaccuracies. I don't know if you've ever been typing a text to somebody and you send it and realize that a couple words were changed because it was predicting you were writing a certain way, and no, I did not say that. And I'm not talking about duck, but but more so basically it's just creating some inaccuracies. So what I found that there is what they call a leaderboard that has basically uses they've built a hallucination evaluation model for all of the current generative AI models out there. And it was interesting to me to see that, GPT-4 right now has a pretty low hallucination rate, but there is a little one there. Whereas like Google, it's interesting that Zoe just brought that up, has a pretty, higher rate. And I'll share this link that you all can check out when we're done here. So, with this idea, if you think about it, like if that task is being performed over and over again, and you've got a few inaccuracies and few wrong decisions, that accumulated intelligence, in my mind, is exponentially starting to get more and more error filled, unless there is somebody there going, oh no, that's an error, correct this, and then so it can learn that. It's interesting that to me that IBM actually posted that this is one of the significant source. The reason this happens is because of that input bias. Basically, if the data set that it's being trained on is based on inaccuracy or assumptions or other biases, it's just going to perpetuate that. So it was interesting to me to see how much is out there that could be doing that. So with that, I'm just going to close this and stop the share for a minute. And wait, okay, so basically, like what I just said, so here we are. So what can we do about all this? And I did a summary of some of the articles, and some of the things that they suggested are things like scheduling audits with inputs from experts and users to spot bias. As content creators, and this is kind of what hit home to me, because we are, to really, try and ensure diversity in our content, that we are broadening our audience with what we're building and what we're creating, to incorporate some clinical expertise. So your folks that are your diversity experts, to take a look at what's put out there, to train our HR personnel and the users of AI of its limits. So I feel like that goes back to that, not just HR, but to our faculty of that AI literacy of what we find, what we see, what we share, and to look at our policies if they do include bias mitigation, to enforce the regular oversight and fairness, and then look at who are our human trainers of AI. Are they culturally, economically, racially, and neurally diverse? So, obviously we're not training the AI, but in some ways we are. So, something that struck me really interesting with neurodiversity, that, and I've had some folks who've worked for me over the years that are that, and it can be argued that I am too, that, as an example, are just very literal. So if I would say something ironic or iconic or sarcastic, that was not being interpreted correctly, or as I intended, I should say. So, what are those, kind of go back to those questions. How are we asking things? How can we guide others to ask them to train it? And how are neurodiverse people reading these things? Like, so, one of the big things that they said through all this was, if you see something, say something. So I think that maybe that's a place that many of us can start, is in some of the things that we're doing to, you're working through Photoshop and you notice that the generative AI is doing something really goofy. Then to write to Photoshop and say, hey, I don't know if you're aware of this, but this just happened. And to see if they can, the developers, to go back to that. But what are some other thoughts that, and I'm going to take a second, we're going to pause again. Here are just some of the articles. Here are just some of the references and articles. that we saw, I would really recommend, again, this, oops, did you memorize it? I am a huge proponent of this book. Was fan-stinking-tastic. I'm not quite done with it yet, but it just gives a really great idea on, right here, on just the experience of an African American person with who is an actual coder and developer with AI. And then the other thing that is a quick amuse-bouche of the whole thing is this LinkedIn Learning course called Understanding Bias in AI. So I recommend really looking at those. And then the hallucination leaderboard that gets updated is in the link here too, that I will be happy to share. So with that, I'm going to close this out and say a big hearty thank you to everybody's openness and ideas. And I always learn so much from these, and I appreciate all of your time. And then I think the only thing I would say left is that we want to put that last screen up to remind people to be sure to submit a presentation perhaps for consideration for the next conference, or come out to the next conference and have a cup of coffee with me. We'll talk more about it, and I want to hear what you're doing. Okay. Thank you so much, everybody. Take care, and love seeing all the friendly faces. Miss you all.